First order of business, review of the minutes from 4/3/20 regular planning commission meeting.
Support.
Motion by Tom, support by Pat. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next item on the agenda is general public comment. This provision is made to encourage the expression of questions and concerns regarding non-public hearing items and issues not on the agenda. If you would like to address the planning commission for something that is not on the agenda, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Thank you.
Seeing that there is none, we will move on. Case number 19-830 Westown Project Lot C8 Aldi Final Area Site Plan. Dan?
Okay.
This is the exciting meeting.
I'm guessing Commissioner Gilbert will step back in at some point, and Commissioner Schweitzer may make it for part of the meeting, but we got enough people here to make a decision, so I think we're good. All right, good. That's right. It's
Yeah,
a
we're
tough.
having a lot of fun out there. You guys want to come?
Yeah.
No. You didn't show them which truck is mine, did you?
Tough balance to strike. So thanks for coming back, Steve. I'll get right into it. This should be a pretty quick slideshow too. I think everybody's been anticipating this project for a while as well. Maybe not with the same candor as the one we just talked about, but there's been a lot of buzz about an Aldi coming in, and here's the plan. So I'll jump right into it. Here's the architectural elevations of the building. We can go back to that image. Whoop. Jumping all over the place here. Here is the basic site layout. I like to show the landscaping plan. As you guys know, I'm a landscaping guy, but it also shows you everything on the site, plus grading, plus building, plus eventual landscaping. So it's kind of an all-encompassing picture of the site. So 95 parking spaces, about a 19,000 square foot building, extensive landscaping along the, especially coming from the south, you're going to see a wall of trees on both sides of the building. And screening from the front, and then you drop off toward the wetlands in the back of the site. Within the context of the Westown project, if you've driven by this intersection lately, you see the apartments going up pretty quickly. There's 2 apartment buildings and a clubhouse building that are under construction right now. The Aldi site in relation to the apartments is going to be out front and to the southwest. So this is the one site that's going to be south of that Meyer traffic light driveway. Roughly 3-acre site, I believe. It's a little bit of a different perspective. Here's the active construction, a cool drone picture from the builder of the Westown apartment project, using it for this image to show where the Aldi site is. There are some constraints on this site, some challenges. There's a few things that are going to partially or completely encumber certain parts of the property. On the top left, this isn't really an encumbrance, but it's just something to know. There is an easement across a portion of the edge of this site where it's the main access drive for the entire project. So that's what we call Westown Drive. That's going to serve the apartments. It's probably going to be the most trafficked route into and out of the apartments, as well as the rest of the sites. Moving over to the right, you see the utility easements out in front of the property, which kind of follow that road network. There's a localized 100-year floodplain, which is basically what the flood levels are going to reach during a 100-year rain event, and a series of wetlands roughly in the same part of the property, which kind of makes sense. It's the low parts of the property that tend to flood. So the building is steering clear of those areas, and including their future addition will have to be built in a manner that's outside of a 100-year floodplain. So where are we in the process? We're at the step 1 preliminary area site plan, and we've already been through step 1, the preliminary area site plan and rezoning for the 33-acre Westown project. And that includes these roughly 12 acres out front that are zoned for CPUD, commercial plan unit development. Now we're getting into the details of one of the sites within that zone. It's final area site plan, so looking at specific improvements to this site. Dimensional zoning requirements, I'll just hit on those really quickly. One thing to note, there is only 21.4 foot front yard setback, and we talked about that during the overarching preliminary area site plan review, that there would be up to or down to a 0 front yard setback in some of these sites, just the way they lay out in proximity to the intersection. So it's going to look a little bit more tight. all the parking is on the side of the building as opposed to the front, so it's not going to look like your conventional shopping, even like those lots across the street. It's going to be a little bit more compact looking up front, but that works with the overall picture of this development. 15-foot side yard setback minimum, 24 rear minimum. The building height is 24.5 feet tall. The maximum for this district would be 35 otherwise, so we're good on all those points. The dimensional zoning, continuing to talk about that, here's the circulation within the site. This is a really poorly done depiction of how cars move into and out of the site, but it's showing that they're using this full service traffic light at the Meyer stop, the Meyer gas station, and then there's circulation throughout the parking lot. Then there's a loading zone that goes back along the back side of the building here. One of the things I focused a little more closely on was the trip generation and stacking. This site is one of those commercial uses that's probably going to produce a fair amount of trips to and from the site. So at the PM peak hour, you can see 176, if I'm reading that right. Well, the table of trip generation is in this packet here. So you see the total daily trips is roughly 2,000. And then this also relates to stacking of the overall site. There's when this entire project gets built out, the traffic study talks about what the lengths of car stacking or queuing are going to be in certain areas. The one I noted is that there's 184-foot, I believe we're talking about westbound left turn out of the development site to the left turn light at Wilson. So there will be some stacking there, and we may just want to ask about how we anticipate that will be affected by this site and where cars would go in the event of a stacking issue, but it probably will occur pretty rarely that you can't actually get out of there and turn left. So I put together a motion sheet in the back of your packet, and by the way, let me know if you didn't get a paper copy packet. I know the mail's been slow and Terry didn't get his, unfortunately, so let me know if you don't have a motion sheet, and we can go through that together. But there's a findings of fact list from the ordinance that goes with the motion sheet. Use those findings to make a decision. I'll only say a few things on my recommended conditions here. Some of these are just redundant, things that we're going to pick up regardless as we get closer to construction. But let's hear what Scott has to say from an engineering perspective, make sure we absorb his comments, make sure the DDA streetscape standards are applied through coordinating with the Downtown Development Authority, make sure plantings are either low or non-existent in the clear vision areas near that busy intersection. We want to make sure there's at least, I think, 60 feet from the intersecting pavement to keep that entirely clear of plantings. The building official should review the retaining wall structures that are proposed. We will need to file compaction test results for the site, and that can be a process that's coordinated with the builder and the building official as to when we get those, but we want to make sure we have those in hand before the pouring of foundations for the building is done. Make sure we get soil erosion and stormwater permits. One area of purview from the Planning Commission is the signage. There's proposed to be a 75 square foot sign on the north side of the building where we typically wouldn't allow any signage on a non-public street facing side of the building. In the context of this site for wayfinding and everything else, it makes sense to have that signage there, but you will have to act on that specifically as part of this PUD request, so I'll ask you to do that. And then just having them submit their final plans. Those are my comments on this project. Thanks.
Any questions for Dan? Scott, you have a few comments?
Yeah, a couple things. Unlike the last plan we just looked at, this has some real engineering, has been reviewed.
And pretty much done.
I feel bad when there's all these engineering comments in a public meeting like that, and I can't say anything because we just don't have any information, haven't really even looked at it. It's just been a concept that's been talked about at the management level. So this is not like that. The two conditions that we have here, after working through quite a few different things at site plan review, number one is that they provide the zero impact report relative to the localized 100-year floodplain. I don't know if anybody here remembers a guy named Ike Sproat that used to live right behind here, but he came in here, I would say, half a dozen times in meetings at the Planning Commission, pointing his cane at me and talking about this drain and the importance of it and the flooding, and I think he's gone now, but I think he would be looking down right now saying, you better not forget this drain. So we got to make sure that we get that covered with a kind of a zero impact report looking at existing localized floodplain, proposed localized floodplain. So that level can't raise up at all with this development. And then the other thing is related to the water service. There was a domestic water service and a fire protection run to this lot. I think what they tried to do on the last version of the plans was just use the fire protection line and then split that off a couple times. And Grand Rapids won't allow that, so we just kind of want to point it out. We've let them know, and it's not a big deal. They'll work through that without any trouble, I'm sure. Okay, that's it.
Okay, any questions for Dan, Scott, or whoever?
Yeah, question. On the entrance and exit, right across from the Meyer gas station, is there room to grow that? Because right now I'm seeing a right turn and a straight ahead or a left, and then one way in. But when these other businesses get going, you know, you can almost see that little section being like the Green Ridge, where you got a Taco Bell on the one side where Aldi's is, and you got everybody trying to get in and out. Is there room to grow that intersection?
There is not.
Because that could get, with those businesses going in, I can see that
east-west
getting,
direction, there is no room to grow.
I could see it like a Target and Taco Bell, people trying to take rights and lefts, and it's going to get really
And I
congested.
think that's one of the problems that we try to forecast when we look at big development areas like this. You know, this doesn't seem like it was that long ago that it was a drive-in theater and a cactus stand. You know?
Right.
And things have obviously changed. The north-south direction, there is room to grow. That's the most important part. So the M Road can grow as the community grows. Where the parking lot, the way that that's designed, the credit union across the street, we don't have any plans to widen that east-west direction. In fact, it's private, so it would be very difficult to widen that without all parties involved.
Sure. Okay.
Any other questions? No.
I've kind of got one, and I was just kind of looking at this and looking at the bigger map as far as what's to the south. And I guess my question is there any benefit for us as far as the layout of that road or going into the parking lot, leaving it structured in a way where there could be a future cross-access easement if there were development to the south in the future? There are a couple parcels down there, it looks like, with frontage to Wilson that, and I'm not saying this would ever be the case, but if they were to develop in some way where we would want to navigate them to the traffic signal, would that make sense?
Yeah, it would make sense from a traffic standpoint, but the topography is very difficult there. In fact, we debated about their proposed extension area where they were expansion off the south side and said that's all going to have to be retaining walls and localized floodplain compensation and things. So I think to be able to get through there is not going to be very feasible.
Anything else? If the applicant would like to come to the podium, state your name for the record.
Todd Grassman with Westown LLC. Just a couple of points to address before Chris comes up here on behalf of Aldi. From the traffic side, the traffic study included Aldi as the footprint here. So all the queuing, all the traffic coming in and out, that's all been addressed in the traffic study and it was adequate. And that's before, I believe, we even stuck the Cummings access point up. So we got that other road going out and then the access point coming through the apartments out to Cummings. So we tried to do that to get that addressing some of that traffic up front. And I think the rest is going to be Chris.
Please state your name for the record.
Good evening. Chris Jankovich, Design Engineers. So, sure, it might be a little easier.
I'd just like to say it's brilliant putting Aldi's right out in front of all those apartments.
How about everybody needs groceries? Wait, can we get that a little sharper, man?
Yeah, I think.
My eyes aren't sharp enough, I think.
Might be your medication, Tom.
I actually have had 7 eye surgeries too, so. All right, thank you. You don't want to get old if you can help it.
So what we're looking at here is the Aldi building on the south side of the lot with all the parking to the north. This was laid out specifically to pull everything to the west side, to bring it up close to Wilson Avenue. And that gives us the ability to do this development with zero impact to the existing wetland that runs through the east and the south end of the property. We are also proposing a retaining wall along the east side of that parking lot. That again gives us that ability to have zero impact on that wetland and to have no wetland fill on this particular property. Now, as Scott pointed out, we are going to have some floodplain fill. We'll have a little bit in this pocket and some along the rear of the building. But to compensate that, we have this large peninsula out here that we're going to be able to cut that down. And with our current design, we're actually excess on cut. We have about 950 yards of excess cut at this point. That will actually increase the flood volume of this area. With the parking lot itself, as you can see, we have a single access onto Westown Drive with no access here onto Wilson Avenue. We are proposing sidewalks all along Wilson Avenue, which gives also direct pedestrian access to the storefront. We are proposing a connector walk along Westown Drive that will connect the crosswalks that are going to be installed as part of the PUD with the sidewalk on the east side of the Aldi Drive that's also going to be installed as part of the PUD. And then we will extend the sidewalk down the driveway into the parking lot to provide pedestrian access for anybody walking on Westown Drive sidewalks to come into the store. The future expansion area here is something that we are accommodating in our design. We're not proposing the future expansion as part of this site plan. That would come in as a separate site plan for a separate review in the future. But you may have seen some of the stores in the area that we're going through. We're remodeling, we're expanding a lot of the stores in the state of Michigan. And we have learned the hard way that it's very hard to do that if you don't pre-plan for it. So we are now making sure that we pre-plan for that. When we get into areas where we expect that there's going to be the sales to allow us to expand the store in the future, as this is the case here, we are pre-planning for that expansion. So we have the area set aside. We've designed all the infrastructure to accommodate that. We've designed the building to accommodate that. And as long as the sales match what our projections are, then we can move forward in the future with that expansion. So I just wanted to clarify what that is and why that's on there. It's just to bring it to your attention at this point. Taking a quick look at the building itself, you have the north elevation here at the top. That's going to face the parking lot. As you can see here, we've got a full masonry exterior that starts out with a tan split face block on the bottom. That's capped with a limestone sill. And then we run brick for the remainder of the facade all the way up to the top of the parapet. The main entrance is located here. That's going to be all glass front, glass doors, windows above. And then this is a canopy that gives us a covered entrance. That canopy then extends into the roof of the cart enclosure. So we're not going to have any cart enclosures or cart corrals out in the parking lot. All the carts will be located to the left and the right of the main entrance. Will be stored in those areas. It's going to be enclosed on three sides with a roof. It's only open right next to the entrance. And then all the carts will be secured utilizing Aldi's deposit system to make sure that they're not left in the parking lot and shoppers bring them back. If anybody ever leaves a cart in the shopping cart out in the parking lot, the first kid that runs in is going to grab it and get that quarter. So it's never a problem. There's never shopping carts out there. We will have full windows in the cart enclosure area, and this is going to be on both sides. It's going to be on both walls, the main building wall and the cart enclosure wall, so that's going to allow the natural light into the store through that area. We will then have some clear story windows running the rest of the facade through that area, and then each of those windows get a sunshade that mimics that canopy. This area here, this raised parapet, it's what we call the tower. That's finished in a composite aluminum panel, and then that's flanked with brick pilasters on each side, and that houses the Aldi logo sign. It's a 75 square foot sign. That sign is mounted flush to the building, so everything's framed into the wall, and then that's set back in, so you have a nice clean flush look with that. Just to the left, that's a section of raised parapet that just gives us some transition from the tower down to the main roof line. That's finished with a Nichiha panel, and that again is, that's got a cedar finish, and that's again flanked by the brick pilasters. Each of these pilasters is going to receive a wall sconce that not only allows us to illuminate the sidewalk, but it also gives some lightscaping that's going to wash the brick at night and give you a nice look during the evening. As we step down, this here is the side elevation that faces the south. This is going to face the county drain. And you get that full masonry facade matching the other side of the building. Going down one more, this would be the front elevation facing Wilson. So this is going to be almost a mirror image of what you see facing the parking lot. However, we won't have the glass entrance here, we'll have a deeper curtain enclosure. But we will have that second Aldi sign that's then going to face Wilson. And again, you can see the curtain enclosures right here, very limited exposure. Everything is all enclosed with that. Coming down to the bottom, this being the east elevation, it's going to face towards the wetlands and towards the residential. Again, you have that full masonry facade. We have a few windows in here that are for the break room. This is going to have a significant amount of evergreens on this side of the building, which is going to provide us that screening feature for the residential. Touching base real quick on some of the comments that were, some of the review comments. Looking at Scott's comments real quick, I talked about the floodplain and how we're going to increase the volume there. With the water service, we have been in discussion with the city of Grand Rapids with Larry Olson this week, and he has given us an approval of the current layout and what we have shown at this time. They still have to do a formal review, but through our discussions, everything looks to be good on their end, and so they should be all set with that. Looking at the transparency of the glass, all the glass will be transparent. However, I do need to point out that these two panels here will be spandrel. This is the restroom area directly behind here, and there would be a divider wall right down the middle. Being on the corner, we do have some support bracing that goes through that. So it won't be a reflective glass, but it will be a transparent glass, but it will be spandrel. It will have a framed wall in the back. It'll have a white finish back there. So it'll look from the parking lot like you're looking into a dark window, but it's not going to be a reflective feature. All other windows will be transparent glass throughout the building. In regards to the clear vision at the corner, I believe that we comply. All of these plantings through here, we've got some Elijah blue, fescue, some decorative grass. We do have some daylilies through there. We have an Abbotswood potentilla and a, what else do we have in there? Green Sergeant juniper. All low-growing plants. They're all going to be under that 24-inch range. So I think we should be all set there, but it sounds like there may be some further review on the final plans as that moves forward. And then I did want to point out in regards to the stacking, that 184-foot stacking that's going to be during the PM peak hour, that's going to be for this left-hand turn lane. I do notice we have the wrong arrow here. This is actually the through lane. This is the left-hand turn lane. And with that 184 feet, that's going to bring you back into this area, but that's going to be under red light conditions. It's only going to be during that afternoon peak hour. As soon as this light turns green and these people are allowed to proceed on that left turn, that's going to open up this area to allow any stacked traffic in the Aldi driveway to escape. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for the applicant?
Oh, yeah.
There it went.
Catch. Yeah, for a second. It's like whack-a-mole.
What's your typical delivery times on the truck deliveries? And the reason I'm asking is because when you're showing on your truck template, it essentially shows that coming right in front of your front door there and backing in.
All deliveries are, our main deliveries are during non-business hours. So we have one truck a day that comes from the Aldi warehouse. It's a 3-part truck. It's got a freezer, a cooler, and a dry goods section. And the driver has keys to the store. The driver comes in, opens up the store, he unloads everything, puts it away, loads up all the recycle in the house, puts it back in the truck, locks things up, and he goes on his way, he goes on to the next store. Outside of that, once a week, we'll have a bread delivery and a milk delivery and an occasional vegetable. Those are going to be much smaller trucks, and so they're going to be even less area. For our old truck, we designed it for a 53-foot trailer with a sleeping cab. So we made sure we can hold the biggest thing through there as possible. We do have smaller trucks, but we can Jeep van, and then our Pepsi trucks are usually short trucks.
Other questions or comments? Otherwise, you can have a seat. This is a public hearing. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing? Motion by Jason. Is there support? Support by Elena. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The public hearing is open. If you would like to address this case, please approach the podium. State your name and address for the record. Seeing that there is none, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Motion by Elena. Is there support? Support by Tom. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Who was it? Pat. Oh. Second by Pat. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Public hearing is closed. Nice plan. Any questions or comments amongst ourselves?
Sorry. There is a comment in the findings of fact under the development stating that it does not meet the applicable standards for the stormwater ordinance, and I noticed the same in Scott's report there. What's the resolution on that, I guess, would be that?
It will have to meet the stormwater ordinance.
Okay, so currently it doesn't, and they will have to. Is that what I'm seeing there?
You should, if we're on track to meeting the ordinance, we should say it does.
That's kind of where I was going with
Yeah,
that.
I thought it so too.
Just out of curiosity more than anything, Scott, did they provide stormwater calcs on that underground storage system?
Not complete calculations, but generally at this point, what we get is something cursory enough to say, we're close or you're way out. And in fact, at first we said you're way out because there were some discrepancies about which way the water went. But we're working through that, and they'll have to meet the ordinance based on our stormwater permit process after this step. And there's a little juggling from time to time on that. So
Yeah, with it being wetland right there, chances are there's quite a bit of water, and those underground storage systems are tough with that situation. But that's, I guess, up to them to prove to you.
Right. They'll have to model. Generally, what we see is like a 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm, and show the before elevation and the after elevation. And they have to be roughly equivalent or less. And if they're more, then you don't have a zero impact anymore. And so they would have to make adjustments.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we can entertain a motion to approve, to deny, to table.
I can make a motion.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the final area site plan for the proposed Aldi grocery store project, which is dated 3/29/2019, subject to the following conditions and based on the findings of fact noted below. Conditions of the final area site plan approval. The applicant agrees to all conditions noted in the planning director's letter dated 4/10/2019. Applicant agrees to all conditions noted in the city engineer's letter dated 4/9/2019. The proposed signage, PUD benefit, findings of facts. The proposed sign package, which includes roughly 75 or 75.7, I guess we need clarification on that, Dan. It looked like 75 with, okay. So I'll amend that by saying, which includes roughly 75 square feet of wall signage on a wall that does not directly face a public street right away. More appropriate overall project can be achieved by not restricting the wall signage to walls that directly face public streets. Limiting wall signs to public street-facing walls is not required to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the inhabitants and users of the development and of adjoining property. Limiting wall signs to public street-facing walls is not required to provide adequate assurance against visual clutter or driver distraction. Joint signs to be shared by different users and other aspects of the overall site design do provide additional limits on negative sign impacts, and the design of the project's overall sign package is appropriate. Findings of facts per section 94-213. The proposed development conforms to the City of Walker 1998 master plan and complements the City of Walker 2007 subplan 4A. future land use plan. The development does meet applicable standards of the City of Walker zoning ordinance, the City of Walker stormwater ordinance, and other applicable city, state, and federal codes and laws. The proposed development will be served by adequate streets, police, fire protection, drainage courses, water, sanitary sewer facilities, and refuge disposal. The proposed development has adequate common open space which unites with the built portion of the site and the surrounding land. The proposed development building design will be harmonious and appropriate in appearance with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity. The proposed development has a layout which provides that adequate routes of traffic to, from, and within the site. The proposed development does provide convenient and safe pedestrian traffic routes. The proposed development does adequately address on-site parking, noise, light, or other external effects from any source whatsoever which is connecting with the proposed development will not adversely affect adjacent neighboring lands or uses. The PUD does not create excessive additional requirements at public cost for public facilities and services.
Okay, we have a motion by Jason. Is there support? Support by Steve. Questions or comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Approved. When do you want to start?
With any luck, maybe get under construction here this fall.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make a quick comment on that?
Yeah.
I just, probably more for Tyler than anybody else here, but Terry as well. I think as far as practice for the ordinance committee, we want to start inviting our chair and vice chair to those, just because I think that's good practice with the fact that we end up bringing them here and then having to sort of rehash a lot of the same discussions that we have in that room. I think it's good practice, and not as a voting member or anything, but just as, you guys can be there, be a part of the conversation if you have the time, things like that. And that way we can have some baseline for the conversations that we'll have here afterwards. So just as a heads up on that, you'll start getting those invites.
Yeah.
It's not doing that, but it's not going down.
Yeah.
We're all busy.
Right.
Big financial companies I heard the other day who had been predicting a recession by the end of this year, just pushed it out another year.
Huh. Interesting.
One of those fun days, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Well, so I'll get ordinance amendments out to you guys well in advance, but if we don't meet on May, well, let's plan on a public hearing for those in mid-May, so May 15th. And we may or may not meet on May 1st. There, I just said May like 12 times in a sentence. But we'll get ordinance stuff in front of you guys.
May 1st is the first meeting, it's a maybe.
It could be. Yeah, it could be the first meeting in May. If you guys are available and you want to meet, we could make it an earlier session. We could do like a 5:30 work session about the draft amendments and then come back with a public hearing and final action on them in mid-May, if you want to do it that way. Are you guys all available May 1st? Okay, I'll keep it close. Yeah, I don't think we need Scott, for anything really. No, I'm just kidding. I need Scott badly.
I can make that meeting, but the rest of the month I'm out. So.
Okay. The topics are gonna be food trucks, signs in Standale. Help me out, Stephen.
Sounds
Temporary
like Jeopardy.
events. What's that?
Sounds like Jeopardy.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard for me to remember all of them. But we'll, storage in housing units, some odds and ends stuff that we just need to clean up. That's it.
What's the update on the light at Cummings and Lake Michigan? Is
In
it
the
planned
fall.
this year?
In the fall.
You said the two left turns out in front of Meyer are gonna be May?
Yeah, what the project we're calling the dual lefts will start on May 4th, which is a Saturday. So when the Meyer folks come to work on that Monday,
Yeah, have fun.
there'll be a week or two of switching out the old signals and putting in the new signals in the right spots, so that as the road gets widened out, there's two turn lanes.
Holy smokes.
I had heard that the removal of the Walker Avenue Bridge got pushed to next year. Is that correct?
Right, we just can't fit it in.
There's so much.
There's,
We've tried, and we're pushing, we've got a lot of great relationships with all the utility companies and things, but we gotta be careful about how hard we push some of those. We have to be realistic. So we've said we're just gonna have to push it off, which gives us more time to plan, to do it right, and to get better prices. And better prices is a really big deal too. So we'll try to bid it out November, December, before everyone has all their work set up for the next year, and then we'll have more people bidding it, better prices, more time to plan.
You guys remember when I stepped down because of the stress of being the chair?
Yeah.
I know, the chair had apparently a lengthy issue he had to attend to in Kentwood, so I know he was worried about making the work session. Yeah, that's Murphy's Law, but,
I remember somebody that a couple of times when you're not giving me any sympathy for me.